Good morning. Yesterday I did something I never thought I would do in France. I baked croissants from scratch. I used to sometimes make croissants back in the US, usually when I needed a bribe for a French professor who might otherwise have given me the grade that I deserved. But I never imagined that I would need to make croissants in a place like France, where they perfected the art. To that point, lots of campgrounds here have bakery trucks that deliver fresh baked goods to the campsite every morning. Sometimes you can even find fresh croissants in vending machines in some of the smaller villages. And here in the city, of course, there are bakeries every few blocks. But right now we're in the middle of a pandemic, and going to the bakery isn't as much fun as it used to be. And we rarely stay in campgrounds or camp in villages when we are allowed to go camping because we prefer to wild camp in the middle of nowhere. Once I found proof and baked pain au chocolats in the supermarché. Those are the frozen raw croissants or pain au chocolats that you just need to thaw, allow to rise, and then bake. They come out really good and they work great in the camping car. But I only found them once. So I decided to make some for myself and they came out really good. Stay tuned and I'll show you how. Time to make some croissants. Here are my ingredients: salt, type 45 flour, which is cake or pastry flour, granulated sugar, bread yeast, whole milk, a couple of eggs, some unsalted butter, and that's really about it. I'll need some tools. I'll need to measure my milk. I'll need to weigh out my dry ingredients. I'll need a rolling pin. I need to mix up the eggs. I'll need my mixer. I'm going to want that milk to be lukewarm. Everybody's gauge of lukewarm means something differently, but roughly body temperature. This one's room temperature right now because it's shelf-stable milk. I'm just going to drop it in a sous vide bath that I have going right now to warm it up a little bit while I work on the other ingredients. First thing is, I'm going to need 500 grams of T45 flour. 500 grams is just a little more than a pound, 1.1 pounds. It's a kilo bag, so it should be half of the bag. And I can just go ahead and drop that. 60 grams of sugar. Now I'm using beet sugar because that's what's most common here, but it really doesn't matter in this recipe. And chemically, beet sugar and cane sugar are very, very similar. I'm going to need 10 grams of salt. And that seems like a lot, but it's really not. 10 grams of yeast. These should be 7-gram packets. Let's see if that's accurate. It is. Now, I'm not going to add my yeast to my dry mix just yet. The reason is I don't want to put it right on top of that salt. I'm not going to make anything very happy. So I'm going to go ahead and give this a dry stir. Good enough. Now I can add my yeast. I need 2 eggs. I see a lot of YouTube cooks just add their whole eggs right into whatever they're making, and that drives me crazy. Don't incorporate properly when you do that. And I'm making pastry here, so it's really important to me that everything incorporates. So I'm just going to give these a nice stir with a fork. I could use a whisk, but honestly, for just an egg or two, fork does perfectly well, and it's a lot easier to clean. I actually want to incorporate this relatively slowly. So mixer back on, my dough hook on. And I'm gonna let that keep working, and I'm gonna try to speak over it. I need 200 milliliters of lukewarm milk. Now let's see what that little bit of time in this sous vide dash, which is only 145, did for us on temperature. I want it to be between 98 and 115 because all of my research onto what the definition of lukewarm basically says that is. So I'm a little warm at 122, 123, and still climbing. So I'll rest my dough and let this cool off. Meanwhile, I know I'm going to need 200 grams of butter, and I need it to start softening. Okay, so this is a kilo, so I should need 20% of it. Cool. Okay, I'm done with the scale, done with this butter, done with this milk, done with everything, and I'm going to need all of my space. I want this butter to soften enough for me to beat it with the paddle, but I don't want it soft like I was making icing. I want it soft enough where I can beat it and make it malleable, but I don't want it to be anywhere close to melting. In fact, we're going to be fighting against butter getting over soft all day long as we make our folds in our pastry. We're down to 115, which is at the high end of lukewarm. Grab my rubber spatula because I just know I'm going to need that. Turn my mixer on, and I want to add this slowly.
Can you tell me how to get 19?
Did you lose your identification, sir?
If you see it start to pool, puddle in here, stop.
I'm gonna be all the way out
Let the
there.
mixer
all
catch
the way
up.
Fucking out there, just on my own. You know, no fucking watch.
I'm going to work on the silicone mat just out of convenience. First of all, it helps me bridge the gap between these two cutting boards and make it easier for me to move this pastry in and out of the refrigerator.
No axe from nothing. Just be out there. Just be out there in it. You know, big mountains, rivers, sky, game. Just be out there in it, you know, in the wild.
Pull it off the saddle. It's pretty thick still.
What are you doing over there? Now
It
you're
hasn't quite incorporated.
You're just living, man. You're just there in that moment, that special.
Pretty humid day here in Strasbourg, so I think I'm going to need just a little more flour to make this right. That was maybe a tablespoon. Yeah, that's starting to feel much better. Okay, I'm actually pretty happy with that. Pull it off the hook. And I'm going to let it sit here until it doubles. So I want this to be a little moister than bread dough. And it is. So I'm going to let that hang out and we'll come back to it in an hour. Now the milk was on the high end of lukewarm, whatever lukewarm means. So that didn't take very long. Just want to punch it down.
I'm gonna be all the way out there, all the way fucking out there, just on my own. You know, no fucking watch, no map, no axe.
So that should be good.
Just be out there. Just be out there, you know, big mountains, rivers, sky, game. Just be out there in it, you know.
And now I'm actually going to want to refrigerate this dough. But I'm going to go ahead and roll it out a little bit now. just to make it a little easier to work with and make it to encourage it to cool down a little faster. So it's going to go in the refrigerator for half an hour. Meanwhile, I'm going to prepare my. I want to make my butter spreadable, and it's still not really soft, which is good. I don't want it to be soft. I'm going to be fighting a battle of it being too warm for the next couple hours. So I'll let that hang out. I'm waiting for my dough to chill. We can look at it and see if it's. Yeah, I can work this. And what I want for this first fold is something fairly close to a square.
It's been a real great twist meeting you two. You two look like you're doing good.
We are doing good.
Yeah.
We're doing real good.
All right, that's not bad. And you probably have a flatter paddle than I do, because this is the first time I've not had a flat paddle. And I get how this is efficient, but it's a little aggravating at this stage, because I hate wasting. Butter's expensive. And you can see it's not real soft. It's just spreadable. So I want this fairly even in a square inside of this first square.
Stubborn old man, sitting on your butt.
Sitting on my
That's
butt?
about what I want.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to fold
I'll show you.
the corners
Sitting on
in.
my butt.
I have to rethink that a little bit.
I'm gonna miss you when you go.
I'm missing too, man. But you're wrong if you think that
So
there's
I
real
actually
life
want
for human relationships.
Square going the opposite way.
People just need to change the way they look at this.
Go that way. That's looking better.
There's some kind of bigger thing. I'll appreciate it. I had my mother was an only child, and so was my father. And I was their only child.
And in an ideal world, what I'd have here would be a perfect square. But I don't live in an ideal world.
You say
It's
you let me
already starting to feel like it's going to go out real well. And I hate using my hands here because my hands are warm, and I want this to be cold, and it's already
grandfather.
too warm for me to continue working it. In fact, I can't even pull it off the silicone as cleanly as I'd like. And what that means is that it's too hot and it's got to go back in the refrigerator. All right, my dough's cold again. You can see that my seams have kind of grown together. It's good. I really don't want butter squishing out. Let's see if I can get it off the silicone or not. Okay, what I want to do now is I want to fold this, I want to roll this out roughly to the shape of my silicone mat, or as close to that shape as I can.
Can you tell me how to get 90?
Did you lose your identification, sir?
I'd really rather not have to put any flour on this. But I'm sticking too much, even though my dough is cold. So I'm just putting enough on the, you can't even see it on the rolling pin. just enough.
Be out there in it, you know, big mountains, rivers, sky, game. Just be out there in it, you know, in the wild. Wild, yes.
What are you doing when we're there? Now you're in the wild.
Just
And I think that's as close as I'm going to get.
there and now.
So what I want to do
Special place in time.
is fold this into thirds like I was folding a letter. So I'm going to fold a third over. I'll pull my other third over. And now I'm going to try to square up my hands. Because just that much friction, my dough's still pretty cold, but I know that the butter that's layered inside of this dough is already getting warm just from that much friction. And I really don't want the butter running out or incorporating into the dough. I want these layers of butter. So we started with the square and folded it in so we had one layer of butter evenly over everything. But now because we rolled it out and gone in thirds, hopefully I have 3 layers of butter separated by 4 layers of dough. And we're going to do this 2 more times, so hopefully we'll have 9 layers of butter. But in the meanwhile, this needs to go back in the refrigerator so that I can roll it out and do it again and again and again. Okay, time for my second letter fold. This is when it really starts to get tough. You're gonna have to work to keep your corners. It always wants to go round. And I really want it to be square.
Sky, game. Just be out there in it, you know.
And see, right there I have a little crease of butter trying to sneak through. So I'm gonna hope that doesn't happen. I really don't want to handle this any more than I have to, because I really don't want to make the dough warm. I really want to work it while it's cold. And again, it's not the flour I'm worried about, it's all the butter. Okay, I'm reasonably happy with that, so I'm going to work on another letter fold. And again, I'm going to try to square it up. Just to make that last letter fold a little easier to work. Of course, I have a lot of yeast in here, so it's going to want to continue to rise. It's another reason to keep it cold, to retard that fermentation. But also the butter is going to slow it down from rising as well. I'm going to go back in the fridge. We'll do our final fold in half an hour, maybe somewhere between a half an hour and 2 hours. It's time to get my final letter fold in. This will give us 9 layers of butter between 10 layers of pastry. Okay, looks like I didn't get that last fold as perfect as I would have liked. But if I could get croissant dough into the freezer, where all I have to do is pop them out and proof them overnight, slowly proof them overnight in my camper, and then cook them in the morning, have fresh croissants while I'm wild camping somewhere in Europe or wherever, I'll be pretty tickled. I think the strategy of working on the silicone mat has been a good one for me. I just want to get this even. I really don't want to work it too much right now, because the next step is going to be, after I let it chill down again, we're going to roll it out and cut it and form our croissants. All right, our dough's cold again. Now we're going to try to roll it out. The thing about making croissants is each step gets a little harder. Really don't want to tear this dough. I'm really trying to keep this centered on my silicone.
We, Shepherd,
Oh, there one
have a
here.
great respect for the mountain. We call Everest Chumaluma.
Really having to put some pressure on this now to move. I'm hoping I'm gonna get all the way to the edges.
Physical challenge. Push your limit to see how close you can get to
And
that.
if this works, I'm going to be doing it again and again and again and again, which I have mixed feelings about. I like
But
eating
there's
croissants a lot more than I like making them from scratch.
And I think some people adapt and learn and respect it. Some people don't.
My dough's starting to get way too soft. And I may be just about close enough, but I'm going to put it back in the fridge anyway and see if I can get it just a little thinner before I cut it and spin it. Let's try. We're in the home stretch now. And I noticed this time as I went in, I seemed to get a little dome in the middle as I'm coming out of the refrigerator. Try to knock that down first.
Western world do not know what a Sherpa is. So a Sherpa, you know, we climb mountains. You know, and that's the first instinct. But they have no idea that we are actually a ethnic group of people.
Should get about 18 croissants out of this. I really like to get multiples of 4. Because 4 croissants is what fits in the Yummy oven. So I'd almost rather have 16 than 18. I'd really like to have 20 more than anything. Okay. So I don't think I'm going to get any thinner. I'm just going to cut my triangles. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's amazing. I'm really tickled with that. Now, I'm not going to curve these because they don't fit quite as well in my oven if I do that. That's 1 liter bags. So I want to freeze these in such a way that they don't lump together. I'm going to try to put them in these bags with some separation. And then tomorrow, once they're really good and frozen, I can let the air out and pack them a little neater. And I'm really trying not to count here and focus on getting the right dimensions for each croissant. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It just worked out. And they're not perfect. If they were perfect, these would be much more even. And you can still see that last spoonful. But so you can see 3 layers of butter in there, but we know that there are 9. The other thing is, the longer I have this out at room temperature, the more likely they are to start rising now. And I don't want that to happen. I want to get this done while they're cold and get them into the freezer. Maybe I'll spurge and take my little scraps and let them proof up for a midnight snack, but the rest of them I really want to get into bags and into the freezer. So, I was talking earlier that I'm using type 45 flour. And I don't think I talked about what the different French flours are or what their American equivalents are. I expected to have to learn a different language when I moved here. And I expected that to have some challenges, but I didn't realize that I had to learn different flours too. So type 45 that we're using in this recipe is cake or pastry flour. Type 55 is kind of a all-purpose, everyday flour like you would use for bread. Type 65 you won't find in this house, that's gluten-free. And then type 80 would be lightweight. Type 110 would be a medium whole wheat. And type 150 would be a dark whole wheat. So I don't think you'll find self-rising flour here at all. So if you wanted to make self-rising flour here, you would use type 45 and add your own baking powder and salt. Personally, I've never understood self-rising flour anyway because it has a shorter shelf life. And I'd rather add my own fresh baking powder. But I'm gonna go in the freezer with these, and then tomorrow we'll repack them and we'll go ahead and and we'll go and give 4 of them a try. So this is my Omni oven. It's a stovetop oven. I think they're made in Sweden. It has a flimsy aluminum lid with a bunch of holes in it and a few dents. Those are custom. Has a silicone liner, which is actually you have to purchase separately. Has what looks like an aluminum bump pan. Stains are optional. And then it has a light steel base plate, kind of a heat diffuser. And you put it over medium heat on a gas flame, and it makes a pretty good oven. And one of the uses I found for it is for my croissant. I did the little scraps left over from cutting the triangles. I laid those out and proofed them overnight in the Omni oven, and cooked them this morning. They were unbelievably good. I'm really excited about what these might taste like. So these froze nicely. They're all frozen and none of them are stuck together, which that's nice. So now I'm taking the rest of the air out and put them back into the freezer. So I really don't have a lot of freezer space. Portions of 4 is really perfect because that's 2 croissants each for breakfast, and that's what fits in the Omni oven. Although these are a little taller and fatter than the other ones I was doing, so I could probably squeeze 5 in, but 4 is actually the right number. And that one's looks like it got a little twisted in the freezer. So I'm just going to lay these out, put the lid on. So they're frozen now. I'm hoping by morning time they'll have proof. You'll see for yourself. Good morning. Oh, those look like they proof well. Try not to scorch them. If they're half as good as the scraps were yesterday, we're in for a treat. All right, I'm gonna continue trying to wake up. See you in a minute. Let's see how we're doing. So the Omni oven, as wonderful as it is, it's not really perfectly even, so I do have to turn it over.
And there you are, stubborn old man, sitting on your butt.
Sitting on my butt?
Yeah.
Ha! I'll show you! Sitting on my butt! I'm gonna miss you when you go.
I'm listening to but you're wrong if you think that the joy of life comes principally from human relationships.